Hello everyone, I'm joining in with my father with another movie review. Say hi, Dad.
Hello.
Today we're talking about the original Godzilla from 1954, directed by Ishiro Honda. This year marks the 7th anniversary when the original Japanese Godzilla film came out. Again, hard to believe another film that's hitting a big milestone of Godzilla is 70 years old.
Yeah.
What do you think of the original Godzilla film?
I think it's great. I was exposed to the Raymond Burr version when I was younger.
Same.
And this film is much, much better.
I can agree on that. I mean, what I love about this film is how it's got the sense of the neo-realism of a post-war. How Godzilla is a metaphor for anti-nuclear war too.
Right.
And also it's about the human characters. That's the real main focus of this film, because from start to finish, I'm invested with these characters, with their dialogue and their dilemmas and their ups and downs.
Yeah, I think the character development really plays a very important role.
Yeah, and also it's crazy as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself how this Godzilla film is real serious and the real thing, whereas people who were maybe seeing the later Godzilla films that they got goofy, campy, Godzilla was an anti-hero or a superhero in later films. And
yes,
yeah,
this has a lot more serious tone to it.
It does.
And it's done very well. I mean, even though it's a guy in a suit,
right?
It still works very effectively with the way they did the matte shots and the miniatures. It works very well.
It does. I read they originally wanted to use stop motion animation like King Kong style, but they realized it would have taken them a real long time. They said, one guy said, I don't remember who said it, but he said it would have taken them years to perfect the stop motion animation. That's why they went the guy in a rubber suit. And kudos to that guy, because I read that guy in the rubber suit, he said it was so hot to wear that suit, especially when they had to do the war scenes when Godzilla's being attacked by the military and the fire, and he passed out during
really?
I don't know which scene, but I just know that he passed out when he made this film because of how hot the suit was.
Yeah, it does look like it would be very difficult to wear, yeah.
And if you remember also when we did The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, that film was an example of an inspiration for Godzilla, but of course, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was your typical straightforward giant monster, well, not B movie, but this is a real serious, they treated serious more than what The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was. Don't get me wrong, with respect to that film, great film, but Godzilla's upped it up a little bit more serious. All right. And also, we said before about the characters, what did you think of the characters of this film? Here's an example. Imiko. What did you think of the woman Imiko?
Yeah, I thought that her and the interaction with the other characters, she was very, very good.
Yeah, and also, not to get off topic, but she was also a very pretty woman at that time.
She was very pretty, yeah.
I forget the actress's name who played this character, and also, she was a very strong female character for that time, and she didn't there's also a little bit of a feminist message, as my friend Christian said in his YouTube video about Godzilla, because she's an arranged marriage to Dr. Serizawa. It's not that she doesn't love him, she just doesn't see him that way. She doesn't want to marry. She wants to marry the other guy. Wait, what was his name? Sorry about this, everybody. Yeah. Hideo Ogata. I'm sorry if I'm not saying these names correctly. I apologize in advance. But the point is, she wanted to marry the fisherman.
Yes.
Yes. But she didn't want not want to be dominated by her father or Serizawa, who she wanted to marry based on her choice, not anybody else's. Yeah. Especially arranged marriages are very big in some certain foreign countries, and you might not know the whole story behind that, but still. And also. As we talked about, also one thing I also like about Imiko too, she was very a compassionate woman. After the destruction and the attacks of Godzilla, when seeing the footage of the post, as if it was a post World War III, the post Hiroshima bombing of a real natural disaster. She's in the hospitals, emergency rooms, and there's a little girl who's crying because she's got separated from her mother, and she's showing compassion for the little girl.
Right.
Yeah, which I kind of like that. It shows how she's very sweet and kind, gentle and soft.
Yeah, it made the movie more human, relatable, and remember that it wasn't that long after the bombing
of Hiroshima.
Right.
Yeah.
That this movie was made.
That's true, because that's what the film reflects on. It's post World War II experience of like what Japan's economy was at that time, and how like there's a scene in the movie, like I don't remember if it was the opening scene, but there was a scene where you have like some like random like minor characters that were just like talking a little bit in the subway train. The woman says that she was a survivor of the Hiroshima bombings, and not knowing what was going to be next after that. Like, how do we like recover from that whole experience? Like, what like is the future of Japan's economy and the future of us as a civilization?
Right.
Yeah. And also another character, I definitely this doesn't really matter which order I do it. Dr. Shirazawa, the scientist who created the oxygen destroyer. That scene when he shows her, I'm thinking to myself, what is more horrifying and scary? A mad scientist who created this lethal, deadly weapon that could wipe out all humanity, and or a big giant monster that's just attacking Tokyo.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's like one of the most horrifying scenes I've ever seen in a horror film. If it made me think, if I made a list of horrifying moments in a horror film, that makes the list. When he's explaining his scientific discovery, and Imago is like traumatized and horrified, like how like here's someone that she grew up with, like the man that she knew when they were children, he's that little boy that she knew when she was a kid is gone.
Yeah, I know, but making such a powerful destructive device.
Yeah, but to his credit though, he admits that like he wished he had not invented or discovered this you know, and because like it's an ultimate not to jump ahead, but it's an ultimate sacrifice where he like goes down like underwater to use the oxygen destroyer. Not only does he like kill Godzilla, he sacrificed himself because he knew that if he had lived, the government would have captured him, and like he probably would not have seen the light of day. Where they wanted to know what was the secret formula behind, even though he destroyed the evidence, but still it's all in his head. He has it memorized, like if kind of like how people memorize their cell phone numbers or their keys.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit three-dimensional to some degree, despite his creation. And also, like my friend Christian said in his video, he supposedly was a war veteran during the war at the time, and he saw a lot of horrific things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, no, just
that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I mean the character, not the character. Not
the character. Oh,
not the character. No, like because of that, because he got the eye patch, and that's like it's hinted that he was a soldier during the war, and how he saw a lot of horrific things too. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder from what he saw in the war, and also horrified what Japan's government was doing during the war too. Yeah. Let's see. It's also another example of how like even though despite science may sound fascinating, but there's always the danger and the downside of science. That was one of them. How he like created this weapon, but it was a lethal, deadly weapon that could wipe out everything. Yeah. And also, let's see here. Sorry for my notes. Oh yeah, the other scientist, Dr. Yamane, who was a paleontologist, and that's Imago's father. He was the kind of character that he was like so amazed to see Godzilla. Like wow, like in all the years of science, he never thought he'd live to see something like that, something prehistoric. Think of him as like the John Hammond of this film from Jurassic Park to some degree.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but when Godzilla destroys, that minor, I don't remember what that character said to him. He said evil. Sorry, I'm not remember exactly what he said, but it's just that the point is he wanted to keep Godzilla alive, but after that destruction, it's like the man is like thinking, you really want to keep this giant monster alive. Look what he did to Tokyo. Like how he's not like showing compassion to the people of Tokyo. Yeah, and also because he's an old man too, because he's been waiting something like that his whole entire life to see something as amazing and brilliant as Godzilla, a big giant monster that was Lord knows, because dinosaurs are like extinct, but he never thought he'd see something like that.
Right.
Let's see. And he feels like he's the first man to see a big giant monster in his life for science, compared to like past or present, more like past scientists.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a theme that goes through a lot of the movies that were done in the 50s.
Right.
Like in The Thing, the Howard Hawks version.
Right.
The scientist wants to communicate with the thing.
Right.
Rather than kill it.
Right.
Before, they're trying to survive there,
right?
Because they know if they don't do anything to stop this, that everybody will be killed,
right?
But on the other hand, this scientist is trying to get them to preserve this monster,
right,
so that he could be studied.
Well, compared to the Thing in that movie, he was a regular human-sized giant. This is 10 times bigger than the Thing monster. It's like, it's not like you could just like put it in his backyard, or or there's like unless you're gonna need a really huge basement, like in a King Kong mill, to put King Kong underground in a government secret base. Yeah. Let's see. And also, what did you also think of of Imago's boyfriend? I mean, not that he wasn't a bad character. I feel like he was just a regular, straightforward, not as like simple and not as complex as the other like characters of the like Dr. Yamane, Imago, and Serizawa.
Yeah. I mean, he just kind of played the love interest.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a terrible character. It's just that he's not like as well interested like the other ones. He's simple and straightforward. He wants to marry Imago. That's it. There's really not a lot of to say about his character. Also, well, since we've already talked about Kara, what do you think of the effects of this film?
Yeah, the effects were really good. Yeah. They were very well done.
Like, I like the shots of like when Godzilla's attacking. It's dark, and that's what makes it scary. Not knowing, like, people don't know how far Godzilla is. Like all they can hear is his roar and his stomps, but they don't know how far is he from, like, close to killing that many people. Yeah,
it built up a lot of suspense.
It did. It did too, and like I said, it's very sad and tragic when Japan is destroyed and how many people lives were lost. And like the movie said, just because after when it's another like how much more can Japan take after when they went through the Hiroshima bombing and this too. Also, one other thing too, my friend Christian mentioned in his video, the opening shot when that boat is attacked, that was a reference to Lucky Dragon 7 at that time, where, once again, correcting myself, it was Lucky Dragon number 5, not 7. It was, the Lucky Dragon was some, like, a boat where, like, a fisherman, they were out in the middle of, like, nowhere fishing, and then they were, like, accidentally killed by a U.S. testing bomb by accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Which I never would have known that either. That not only does this film reflect Hiroshima, reflects Lucky Dragon at that time. That was just something I read through research. Like, wow, I never would have known that. That was what the opening reflected that time. But it's crazy how this came out the same year. That happened the same year as this movie's Godzilla's release, and this film had a fast-paced production. But yet, it's amazing what they were able to. It's one of those rare times where the fast-paced production worked for some reason. I don't know. It's just hard to describe why that is. Like how this movie's fast-paced production, it worked. Despite the fast-paced production, they were able to pull it off. Yeah. Despite also like Godzilla being in a suit, it wasn't stop motion, but it's still pretty cool though.
No, it is. It's very good.
It's not CGI.
I mean, there's another movie that I think is a good movie that doesn't have stop motion, is Gorgo.
Right, which I've never seen. I've heard that's supposed to be good, and because in the words of like James Rolfe, put in this, the way he described this film in his video was that they treat this movie seriously, not like a, well, I'm probably not saying the way he said, but you get the point though, that this movie's treated serious like a real giant monster sci-fi horror film, not a B movie. Right. Because I remember when I first saw this, that's how I first saw it and thought of it that way, because hopefully I don't get hate for saying this. At first I didn't like this movie, but then after more viewings and research, I'm like, oh, this actually film is a lot better than I realized, and now I see its bigger message behind it. Yeah,
I mean, for me, the watered down Raymond Burr movie really doesn't work at all.
Right. I saw that first, like every Godzilla fan, before I knew about the Japanese version, thinking, oh, this was the first Godzilla film. But no, I was wrong. It was not the Raymond Burr version, because at the time when this film was released, it basically got a mixed reaction from American audiences at the time when it was a limited release at the time in America, and that's why when it was distributed, they re-edited the film and added the Raymond Burr scenes to this film. Which I don't think, again, I don't hate Raymond Burr's version of this film. I just find it distracting, like where you can just tell that it was like not that he's not in the same scene with like the Japanese actors. He's not. It's a body double. It's not the real actors who played Imago or Dr. Serizawa. Yeah, and once you're watching a scene from the Japanese guy, then it cuts to Raymond Burr, and you're like, wait a second, I'm confused. What was going on? Yeah, it's too obvious and too. It's not a no-brainer to know that was Raymond Burr cutscenes. It takes away the uniqueness of this film. As a joke, the American Godzilla King of the Monsters cut can be looked at as Godzilla meets Perry Mason. What's ironic, the Perry Mason TV show was not on the air at around the time when the American cut was released in 1956. Yeah. And also, this film was inspired from King Kong because I don't know, like, I probably could be wrong saying this. It was either Honda or the special effects artist. Crap, his name doesn't ring a bell. Again, I'll just add that in as I'm editing this video. They said they were inspired from King Kong when they were kids seeing the original King Kong, and you can tell there's some King Kong inspiration, whereas King Kong was a action-adventure. This is more on the serious side.
Right.
Like, if you compare, like, the island scene of Godzilla in this film with King Kong, you can tell the difference, but Godzilla does not have a mate like King Kong. It's not a Beauty and the Beast story. It's more of the horror and sci-fi element.
Right.
Yeah. And like King Kong, there is a little bit of, like, humanized to Godzilla because Godzilla was a mutated lizard. He did not, like, want to destroy, but he had no choice because it was part of his human nature. Yeah. Kind of like that, where he's misunderstood.
Right.
Like Frankenstein's monster.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. But it begs the question, is Godzilla the good guy or bad guy? There's, like, no right or wrong answer to that, how you want to interpret that.
Yeah, I think it's this similar in that it's a like Frankenstein and like
the Wolfman,
King Kong, and they're beings that are different and have different instincts, and as a result of that, they cause destruction.
Right.
So, how responsible are they for that? It's hard to say, but
right. Because it makes the question: was it Godzilla's fault, or was it because of like people who mutated him into a big, giant monster? First, he was once a regular creature, but then became this big giant monster that did not want to do destruction.
Right.
Kind of like the Wolfman. He didn't Lawrence Talbot did not want to turn to the Wolfman, but he had no choice when the full moon rise.
Right.
Yeah. Also, this film has like some very like powerful scenes, like the loss, like when, like I said, the little girl that lost her mother after when post Godzilla attack, and the woman, the children that died when Godzilla's attacking and the buildings are coming down. The mother says to her children, "We will join your father soon in heaven." It's like so sad and tragic to see something like that.
Yeah. No, I think they really added a human element, and that really gives the movie more depth and more feeling.
Right. And also those little girls that sing in the choir too after the post, like as they were singing a tribute and a prayer to the victims that died in Tokyo from Godzilla attack. It's a very like sad, dramatic moment in the film.
Yeah, and I think that really reflects on how this movie is basically metaphorically reflecting what happened with the bombing of Japan.
Right. Also, like how it has that, like I said, it has that documentary feel. As you were like watching a post documentary on the Hiroshima bombings, and also this was during the time of the early years of the Cold War, at the time when everyone was afraid of like nuclear war or another possibility of a World War III of destructions. And also my friend Christian said also this could have been a film that was referencing the Manhattan Project of look at Oppenheimer that came out recently.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that the person that developed, the scientist that developed that device that he used is a reflection of Oppenheimer.
A little bit, and also
similar to what he developed, this very destructive, and he was reluctant, or at least had regrets.
Yes, well, he says he regrets that that he wish he didn't create this bomb and this weapon. And actually, another thing I read that this film reflects on too, in that scene when the Oxygen Destroyer destroys those fishes, that was also looked at metaphorically for Unit 731 at the time. When I remember when I took history classes, that was like a shock to me. Like I never would have known that about a World War II history, that the Japanese government was experimented their own kind of like trying to find a lethal deadly weapon to like put in like a weapon to help create win the war.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't want to get too much detail. But still, that's just that was just like one of the most like shocking things I never would have known as like someone who reads about World War II or other like history events. And not something that they taught me in middle school or high school. That was more like the college level. They taught me that event. Yeah. Anything else you want to like reflect on this film that has to offer that it's made an impact on like Godzilla fans or even like giant monster sci-fi B movies too?
No, well, I would just encourage everybody to see it.
Right, definitely.
Even though you know it's an older movie in black and white, etc., it's still worth seeing. Especially seeing how serious the movie is compared to many subsequent Godzilla.
Oh yeah, like I said, like the first movie, this is all serious. Then the sequels got comedy, goofy, campy, and more geared towards children. But then throughout the years, you know, like Godzilla's fought like big giant monsters like Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, King Kong. The list goes on, but he hasn't fought Gamera yet. Don't ask why that is.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I can tell you why that is. But anyway, and but then eventually, like after like the 60s and 70s Godzilla films that were comedic and more kid-friendly, giant monster B movies, the 80s and 90s kind of like made Godzilla more serious.
Yeah, they made it more serious.
Yeah, but not like the same like what they did with this the original first film. They still had the marketing towards kids a little bit, and like he still fought giant monsters, and of course there's the American versions of like '98 with Matthew Broderick, and then there's the recent Monster Universe where they made it more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. And also, like, recently, Shin Godzilla, which I still have to watch and review eventually at some point for my Godzilla videos. And they also, Godzilla Minus One, I don't want to get too much away, that was not a remake, that was the same spiritual as the first movie. That's all I'm going to say right there. I don't want to give anything away because I'm going to be making a Godzilla Minus One video at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
Before I end this video, here's a recording of my friend Christian giving his thoughts on the original Godzilla movie.
So yes, the original Godzilla, if you go onto my YouTube channel, I've reviewed this actually technically twice. I did an hour-and-a-half long video with me and John's friend Bill on the movie. Then I redid it in 2020, the summer of 2020, I reviewed all the Godzilla movies. But the original Godzilla, it is my favorite film of all time, because I think one of the reasons why it's my favorite film of all time is it's more than just a monster movie. Like, sure, the premise of a giant monster being created by radiation, it's a ludicrous premise, but the movie treats the subject matter almost like serious drama, because it's not really about the monster itself. It's about how the appearance of this monster affects the lives of these characters, but it's also very much about why Godzilla exists. Really what the film is about is, it's really a statement about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the dangers of nuclear testing in general, and in a lot of ways the film really is about the horrors of World War II once again being inflicted upon Japan, only as a giant monster. Like, basically, Godzilla in this movie, he is the shadow of World War II made flesh. That's how I would describe it, and it's also a very sad movie. Like, this is probably the darkest and most depressing monster movie ever made, and one of the reasons I personally think the original Godzilla is far more sophisticated than a lot of the American monster films that were coming out around the same time is because in the American films, they would just use the concept of atomic radiation creating monsters as sort of just a plot device, whereas in this movie, Ashiro Honda uses that premise to actually make a political statement. But yeah, I cannot recommend the original Godzilla enough. It is, in my opinion, an absolute masterpiece, and I would hold it right on par with some of the films of Akira Kurosawa as like an excellent example of Japanese cinema.
Okay, I guess that wraps it up. Say bye.
Bye-bye.